Hi everybody, welcome to Our Worship Sound. My name is Peter, and today I want to show you how to take your solo or small band worship leading experience from something like this. You are all I need, to something more like this. When the cares of this life claim my devotion, return to the truth. Then you are my portion. Come fill up my heart, come fill up my soul with more of you, Lord. I need you, Jesus. Alright, so that was all accomplished using backing tracks and a couple of computer applications. So today in this video I want to show you how to set up loops to play for a simple repetitive song like this. Loops are nice because they allow you a lot of flexibility in terms of what you do live. So we'll show you how to do it, and it's pretty simple. So to the computer. To set up this simple backing track, we're going to use two applications that I talked about in my software for the Creative Worship Musician video. We're going to use Ableton Live to play back what we record, and we're going to use Logic Pro to create the tracks. And you can use any recording program that you like to create the tracks, like Pro Tools or Sonar or Cubase, Digital Performer. You can also use Ableton Live itself. I happen to use Logic Pro, so we're going to use this. We're going to start with a new file, just create an empty project, and we're going to create two instrument tracks. And the first track we will use for a synthesizer pad sound. We're going to use Blue Carpet. For the drum sound, we're going to use an Ultrabeat kit, Pop R&B. I'm going to close the media browser. Alright, so we're going to set the project tempo to 77.5 beats per minute because that's what I used when I recorded this song on my worship album, which is available free at OurWorshipSound.com. And we're going to set up a 4-bar loop. So I'm going to hit C to turn the cycle on, and I'm going to go ahead and record a 4-bar progression. Okay, as soon as that's done, I'm going to quantize it to the quarter note so everything lines up. Okay, so that should loop seamlessly. We're going to go ahead and drag that out. Actually, we're not. Going to copy and paste. So Option drag will create a new copy. And we're going to create two variations and then an ending note, because sometimes when if you're using backing tracks looping, you have to end sometime, and if you just stop the tracks, it sounds too abrupt. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a fourth segment that's just for the ending of it and making it not abrupt. So here we're going to turn the cycle back on, and I'm going to record a basic just kick and cross stick pattern to start off for the drum loop. Dealing with a little bit of latency here in my system, so it's throwing me off. That's my excuse for playing off time today. Here we go. See if it quantizes the right direction. Alright, that's ready to go. So I'm going to drag this cycle region over, and then I'm going to create a copy, 2 copies, 3 copies of that, and we're going to add an 8th note shaker on top of this section. Hit record. Here we go. Okay, now let's see if we can get that quantized right. That looks correct, and will sound right when we play it back. Yes. Okay, so now I'm going to take my glue tool, combine those two regions. Alright, so that's our first variation. For our second variation, I'm going to add 16th shaker with a hi-hat as well. Here we go. Record. Okay, and because of the way I have to set up my system to record the audio for this tutorial, I'm hearing the sound. I'm getting a lot of latency and hearing that sound late, so it's really kind of throwing me off. But hopefully the quantizing will cause it to go in the right direction. Yes, we're set to go. Here's what that sounds like. Perfect. Okay, that's our second variation. Now for our end note, I'm going to shorten this region down so I just hear that first kick. Okay, and so we want that pad to fade out, so I'm going to delete everything except the first note. And then drag these out so they go the full 4 bars. Not that it makes a tremendous amount of difference, but we want that to fade out now, so I'm going to draw some automation. I'm going to click A to bring up the automation mode. And you'll start to hear how this fades out. Maybe a little bit long. Okay, so, and that's it. I'm going to mix this just a little bit. I'm going to turn that cycle region on. Okay. Right now the drum loop sounds a little bit overbearing to me, so what I'm going to do is take off some of the low end with a high pass filter here. I'm going to pull back the high end just a little bit. This seems a little bit more conducive to maybe just, one person singing with a guitar. You don't want it to be, too massive. Keep it simple. Okay, so our levels look good. They're not clipping or anything. Okay, and this is important because we're going to export these tracks individually. So before we do that, we have to drag the end project icon down, turn the cycle off, and we're going to go up to File, Export, All Tracks as Audio Files. Now we're going to export full resolution files of this. I used to export MP3s and try to import MP3s into Ableton, but the extra information in MP3 threw the alignment off, and so and plus Ableton doesn't work with compressed files natively anyway. So if you put MP3s in, it'll play, but it first has to convert it to full resolution files, and so you end up with this big folder on your computer anyway. So you're better off just exporting the full resolution files. You can do waves or the AVEs. 16-bit. We are not going to bypass the effects. We are going to include the volume and pan automation. We do have that volume automation in there that we need. All right, save it, and it'll export these two tracks individually. The nice thing about having the tracks individual is that you can make adjustments to them once you get into Ableton. Maybe the level needs to be adjusted or something. So anyway, we're in Ableton. We're starting with a blank project, and I'm going to go over here first and set the tempo to the same thing that we used in Logic, and then it creates this one audio and one MIDI track by default. So we'll keep that and start dragging our audio files in here. And it doesn't really matter where in the grid you put them because we're not going to really use this arrangement view. We're going to use the session view, which we'll get to in a second. Now when we get these in here, we're going to play it. That is playing more slowly because Ableton tried to kind of lock it into its own tempo, but that's not what we want to do. We're just going to unclick the warp button and then click it again, and then you can see that this it's going to warp to the right tempo now. So same thing with the pad. unclick warp. So here it's 78.3, which I don't know where it gets that, but anyway. So now everything should line up. And you do need to have the warp enabled to be able to loop it, which we're going to do in a moment. So now everything is lined up. We're going to copy these, or we're going to highlight them and drag them over to the session view icon. We're going to drop them in the second slot. And the reason I like to do that is because sometimes I'll cut a song up into different sections, but I forget what sections they are. And so I leave an empty MIDI track. It doesn't play anything, but it allows me to just put little notes in here on the region tag. So I'm going to title this My Portion and put the tempo in there. And I put the tempo in there so if I'm combining it in like a bigger, like a concert session or something like that, I'll know what to set this scene label, so it'll automatically set the tempo to this song. So we copy this down 4 more times, and then change this to loop 1. And actually, I'm going to copy that and put it over here. So we just have to change one number. Whoop. And then this is going to be our end note. All right, so we've got that. Now we need to set our loop parameters. So for blue carpet, which is the pad, we're going to come down here and select loop. It's already set to start on the first measure of that region. And we're going to make it go for 4 measures. And these other 2, 0. All right. And the same thing with our drum loop. Select loop. Now, when we click this scene, we'll see that each of these are going to play for 16 counts. You can watch this progress meter, and when it gets around to the top, it's going to start over seamlessly. And that'll keep looping forever until you do something else. So I'm going to copy this pad down because that's the same, except for the end note, which we'll change in a moment. Now let me copy this. And we're just going to have to change the start time on this. So come down here, start measure 5, and it just changes it over. That's pretty cool. And then measure 9. All right. So we have our initial loop, loop 1, and then at whatever point we want to change it, we can go to the second loop to add that 8th note shaker, and then the 16th note shaker and hi-hat. Okay, so then the only thing we need to set is our last note, and this is not going to be looped, but it needs to start at measure 13. Will this work? We'll have to see. Do the same thing for the drums. All right, so the way I would use this is I would start the tempo, and having this empty MIDI region in here, forgot to turn the metronome on, having this empty MIDI region will allow me to trigger this scene. If I don't have it, nothing happens. It won't start playing. But if I have this, even this empty MIDI region, or clip, they're actually called, it will allow me to start the metronome, which I'll have routed through my earphones. And so I can hear that and start the song in tempo and then add the loop whenever I'm ready. 3, 4. Okay. Up here I have this set for 1 bar, and this allows me to trigger the next clip within 1 bar of when I need it to start, and it'll start the next clip or the next scene on the next downbeat. Here's loop 3. Click the scene, and this starts everything in this row. Here's our end note. So pretty smooth. All right, so that's how you set up a basic backing track system if your song loops according to a given chord progression like this song does. There are definitely some more complex techniques to be learned, but anyway, this is a good start on it for now. At this point, I hope you'll look me up on Facebook or Twitter and follow me there, subscribe on the YouTube channel, and definitely want to invite you over to OurWorshipSound.com and subscribe to the email list, download the free worship album like I talked about. And that's about it for now, everybody. There'll be more to come. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you later.